Hey guys, you're looking at a woodworker's shop for my modular town. And all these little detailed pieces, a couple of these boats, not all of them, but this boat in progress. These are all from Tom Cartos's new Dungeondraft packs. If you don't know, with Mulk's help, who's on Discord, he they reorganized his packs, and you remember there was tons and tons of packs, and it was really unwieldy to use Tom stuff in Dungeondraft. Well, he fixed all that with this latest release, and you've got food and decor options, and these options go well relatively with Forgotten Adventures. That's why I'm so excited about it. You can see here, this is a jungle release for my modular wilderness system, and this is all made with Tom's, jungle fauna. And you're seeing a bunch of Forgotten Adventure stuff in here as well, but all those palm trees. Here's all of the thrones that I created for the modular dungeon, in like these lions in the snake head and this, those plants around it. These are all Tom Cartos things, these hands that you're seeing. And so, you have to make some decisions with Tom stuff when you use it. And the stuff at the really big layer and level, like, his buildings kind of clash with Forgotten Adventures. But Tom is working on updating and bringing more kind of world building assets like walls and floors to his system. And so, with 6,500 assets, 150 to 200 new ones every month, this is a great source for assets. I mean, look at this. Look at all these cool things that you can put. This is just another building that I've got in my system. This is an armory. And so, being able to do things like this, like a lot of these pieces, those wings, these components on the edges, the machinery, these are all Tom Cartos pieces to make this airship. So, big thanks to Tom and to Mulk for actually putting this together and for keeping this updated going forward. Fills a lot of holes for us. Total win with objects and decor. And I'm just really excited to show you the rest of this tutorial. We're going to jump into detail here, starting right now. Okay, so let's start with the basic orientation with Tom Cartos' new stuff. First of all, I'm in my Dungeondraft assets folder, and you can see this is great. It's down to 6 asset packs. And they follow in a similar way to what Forgotten Adventures did in their reorganization. Subtle differences here. So you have artificial assets, which will include a lot of things that you expect to see, like furniture and things like that. Building assets, which we'll talk about. Modular assets. So Tom has a lot of modular things, like Forgotten Adventures also, sewers and other stuff. Natural assets like trees and flowers and things like that. And then prefabs, which is something that's really great that Tom has, is just already set tables with chairs and everything else that you can just drop into scenes really, really quickly. But maybe you don't need them all the time. So he put them in a separate pack so that you can decide on a case by case basis when you use them. And then his floors. So you'll see over time more floors, more walls, and other things to do more world building with. For right now, we're just going to talk about what's in there today. So another thing to just orientate you, in the objects tool, you do have all of your sets. If you install all of the asset packs, you'll have them all here. So you can just jump straight in and just start exploring the artificial items asset pack. But likewise, if you scroll down, you will see also all your Tom Cartos stuff here. So maybe you want to browse thematically, and you want to just look at altars or animal trophies, or there's another one. There's a magic and cultist item in here. We're going to walk through some of these today, and I'm just going to point out some things that I think are my favorite. But by far the win, even just now with Tom Cartos' stuff, is all of the objects that he creates. I mean, this stuff is really, really cool, and you can't find it in other packs, but it's super useful to make interesting types of environments. I mean, just looking at like these symbols and things that I showed you earlier, this is great stuff. Uh, really glowing magical things. These are things that I'm really excited about. So let's go ahead and start walking through some of the things that I think you should take note of if you're going to start building with Tom's stuff. So first, let's jump into the prefab assets, since that's the first one on the list, on my list. And here you've got these prefab assets. So you've got, these weapon racks. You've got all of these pre-laid out tables that you can just drop into a war room with all of the maps already done for them. You've got shelves for your libraries. I mean, this is just, look at all the work that goes into setting a table like this, and it's already done for you. Now, with these prefabs, if you're working with Forgotten Adventures, you'll see that some of these will conflict in terms of the artwork. Like this artwork does conflict. Now, I have a Tom Cartos table over here, some of the food, but once you start adding in the chairs, for example, you can see that they'll conflict. Also, you can't, these chairs are built into the prefab, so you can't necessarily set them on a square, which may make it challenging to put tokens on them if your intent is to, populate your world with tokens. You want to be thinking about that ahead of time. But all of these different things that we've got available for us are just really, really outstanding. Here's flower boxes. Here's actually fully built marketplace stalls. Here's, things that you would put into a museum. So the prefabs are definitely a welcome addition to what you've got available to you if you've just been on Forgotten Adventures stuff. And he really does fill in a lot of the holes with Forgotten Adventures. So, there's another thing here I want to show you. There's some in prefabs, but if you're doing any sci-fi work, he's got some great consoles and things that you might find valuable for that kind of thing. So don't miss that. If you're doing sci-fi work, there's a lot of work that Tom's done that translates to sci-fi just because he uses a different kind of palette and different textures. I think they lend themselves well to be able to do things like that. Next one we'll look at is the building assets. This is entire buildings, empty buildings that you can drop in and dress up, which if you've been watching my modular series, these can be really, really helpful. I haven't figured out the ideal sizing for them. If I go to 1 by 1, I think this works, but you can see it's a little bit off in terms of where the doors are and things like that. So maybe this needs some adjustment in a future release, but I think you'll find that'll be useful, especially if you're trying to make a lot of, buildings really quickly. So these are all dressed and ready to go. So this is a really powerful tool. But what's even better is you have all of these roofs that you can drop in. So if you want to create a whole town, you can do that with Tom's stuff. And you've got really detailed and nice roofs that you can deploy and make an entire city and town map out of it, which I think is super exciting to have that type of modularity. I mean, look at all these different styles that you can really mix and match with. You could turn on scatter and really go crazy with a town. Just do it. Turn on your scatter tool and make your orientation so it, it just goes like 90 degrees and 0 degrees, and you'd end up with some really cool stuff. And there's just a lot of great, interesting buildings inside of here. And then you even get into tents and other types of structures that you can just go hog wild with. Next thing, we'll talk about the big one, the artificial assets. So there's a lot in artificial assets that are game changers. Just to kind of go through some of it, the decor items, right? Just these animal heads and tusks. These are things that you're going to end up using a lot. Clothing is a big deal, and armor and weapons. You saw my armor shop a second ago, but you can deck everything out or put really cool looking, interesting things that your players could find. All of the clothing options that you just don't get in Forgotten Adventures, you have them just replete with Tom Cartos stuff. You've got banners that can really enhance and accentuate the maps that you're putting together. You've got piping. So maybe I can find some piping. Oh, and damage. I mean, you've got rubble in damage options and a lot of it. You've got broken furniture now. These are all things that are hard to do if you're just operating with Forgotten Adventures, but Tom just comes and plugs all those holes. Here's all the piping options. I mean, how great do these look? And you can use these in all kinds of environments, or you can use them in prefabs to create other things. I've used this shape right here to create finished pieces that have nothing to do with piping. It's just a really, really great, well done piece that you can use to make something else look finished. You've got chests, lots of chests. You've got awnings that you can just drop in. See if I can find some of these chests for you. Oh, barrels. If you're doing sci-fi stuff, here's some more things that will lend themselves well to modern or science fiction type maps that you might be creating. Here's all of our chests, really attractive looking ones in different configurations. What's really great about his chest though too is he offers them in opened and closed configurations as well. At least there were at one point. Yeah, here's an example of a chest that's open and one that's closed. You could make some really nice prefabs in Foundry just with these open and closed chests, or using Foundry's got some modules like pick up sticks where you can have a nice chest that's even glowing, and you can use these two assets to be able to create that. All of these little things, bags, sacks, which you get in Forgotten Adventures, but it just gives you that much more variety. Here you've got luggage and suitcases. And this is great. You can, do a train car and have tons of luggage and suitcases everywhere. You've got really attractive bottles, and then, gosh, you get to the food. And, you've never been able to do this with Forgotten Adventures. You've got some really great stuff from Sunless, White Fox, that does some great food items, but this is top notch. These are all the things that you wish you had when you're decorating your tables and your kitchens and your taverns. Just stuff that you don't get to see every day. Kind of going further, you've got really beautiful rugs of all different varieties and shapes and dimensions that you can use. I mean, he really does some awesome rugs here. They're probably in a lot of cases too detailed for Forgotten Adventures, and maybe the wrong color palette. I don't know, but I would play around with it because these really make a room look like really finished. I mean, that doesn't look bad. That I'm kind of a fan of that. So tons of stuff that you can use there. You can see there's just more rugs. It's great. Here you get into some more clothing. This is some more of the Japanese style clothing. You've got masks, gloves. What is this? This is more stuff for the Tailor. Oh, the Tailor stuff. This is fantastic. If you want to have your players be able to go shopping, you just can't ask for more interesting things for them to run across than what he's just got in the Tailor's pack alone. You've got shoes, plates and dishes, tons of variety of those now. And those go on for quite a while. You've got different beds. These beds will conflict with what you've got in Forgotten Adventures, and the artwork just is definitely Tom's signature artwork. But as you get into scales the size of beds, you'll have to start making some decisions of whether you use Forgotten Adventures or Tom for that particular large piece of art. Here's more of your furniture. This furniture is laying down. Lots of different chair types. The chairs also will conflict. You can play around. It depends on the chair, which one you're trying to use, how much it conflicts with the other art style. But again, as Tom starts to create more flooring and wall options, then maybe you start, preferring that for your, world creation stuff. But look at all these seating options. You can design any kind of high-end, low-end home that you want to with all of these things that he's made available. Here we've got hammocks of different types. More rugs. You've got Dwarven things and even Elvish things with what Tom's created. So you can just look up Dwarven, or you can look up over here and you can find things. But this is a really beautiful piece that you could imagine putting in a lot of different places. You know, I've made thrones, as you saw, out of these pieces. So really, really flexible stuff, really ornate stuff. Here you've got covered tables, so you can make like a nice restaurant. Just really excited about everything that I see in here. You've got, here's an orrery table from the Wizards pack. There's just so much to explore in there. Here's some more modern things. In case you want to do some modern stuff, you got modern toilets and other types of things. Money, games, casinos. I love this stuff. These are all of his maps. Being able to drop in a map or multiple maps into a scene. These are just great. Here's more. So, you know, all the paper options. You've got mirror options now, which may look weird because you don't see a whole lot of mirrors. This is more typically how you'd see a mirror in a house, just from straight down. But you can use a lot of things that aren't even mirrors that could be. I don't even know if this is a mirror. It's just a wall plaque, but that could very well be a nice mirror in a ballroom or in a really nice bathroom. And look at this. You've got picture frames that actually look like picture frames instead of just kind of faking it with stair pieces and things that you've seen me do in the past. I mean, that's just beautiful. Really nice looking, although not colorable. And that's one big thing I'd like to see with Tom's assets is, and this may take a while, but to actually get them to be colorable. So I can use this same, you know, beautiful asset, but in a red or a green or something like that in the future. You've got toys, which are unique to Tom. You've got a whole lot of jewelry, which is also great. I've struggled to make jewelers in the past with what's available. You've got all those. You've got more types of coins. Just a great crown. What a great item to find in a room somewhere. All of these jewels, all of this magic stuff, these are all in the magic elements as well. Lots of new lighting options. You've got a lot of really great options with Forgotten Adventures too, but this just adds more to your vocabulary. Lots of really cool lighting options like this lit brazier I've used in some of my maps, like the trireme. And so you could just have fun all day just in some of this stuff. Here's some great things, some totem pieces that you can make, build into some, you know, island themes and things like that. But look at these. That's just great. That's, you know, really eye-catching and really creative. And you could do a lot with those types of assets. You've even got specimens floating in tanks. Here's a lot of the debris and things that you can use as debris, scattering stones around with your scatter tool. So many more options. Like here's just, you know, smashed pieces of wood that I've used to create just really damaged and debilitated buildings. You've got more musical instruments with Tom stuff as well. You've got some really, really great options with Forgotten Adventures, but you can see all sorts of new things. Look at this. I had to build one of these manually when I built the church, and now we've got it as just a drop-in asset. So really stupendous work. You've got also very interesting and nice looking bridges, and he makes those bridges available as paths as well. In fact, why don't I just segue over, just got to show you some of these other cool things that I like. I'll come back here. Actually, why don't we finish this list up? Then I'm going to show you some of the paths and things that he's deployed because you'll get a ton of utility out of those. Here's, you know, if you want to make ruins. Another big thing is he has a lot of statues. It's another thing you don't get with Forgotten Adventures is just a ton of different statues. And Tom has a really, really great selection of statues and things that would go well in lots of different environments. Dragon heads. Here's some of these statues that he's got deployed. And thematically, you can find statues for all sorts of things. And here's some really cool metallic, you know, um, bronze and other types of statues. You've got Dwarven runes that you can deploy. Here's some of those uh, airship assets that I talked about before. Really great stuff here. A lot of these gears, and here's some netting, but I've done some amazing stuff with just these gears, you know, your Clockwork dungeons and things like that. Here's more of these, you know, component pieces in case you want to go a little more sci-fi or steampunk, just all sorts of creative stuff that um, I think you'll appreciate. I mean, there's a little, I don't know, energy reactor. Here's another orrery board, much bigger one. But this stuff is just insanely cool. And you could think of like just these alone, you could think of 1,000 places you could deploy these to really tell your story. You know, modern sinks. Look at all these pieces of equipment, tools. That's another thing that Tom's just got tons of, is just tools, like hammers and knives and, you know, all sorts of things that it's hard to do these. Like, you know, here's just a perspective of a you know, a pickaxe. But look at all this. And it just goes on forever. And he's done it in ways that let you really lay them about your scene the way you want to. You've got traps of different kinds. Look at all this. The stuff that you could do with these traps. I need to get some of these things into Foundry and start putting parallaxia on them so I can spin them around and do some fun stuff with them. All of this stuff. Here's all of these boats, which are just ready-made for you. Just drop them into any map. And likewise, you've got other vehicles. You've got carts. Look at all these shields. He's got even like really terrible shields, like for orcs and things like that. All the weapons that we're getting into, and also, you know, ballista, cannons. You guys have seen me use this cannon with the airship before, but now we're getting into all these weapons, and he really does a great job building detail in different views and angles of these weapons, so that you can kind of have everything at your fingertips that you want. That's cool. It's a bow. It looks like made out of like antlers or something. And then you've got these things that you can put on floors and other things to make them look more ornate or interesting. You can throw these into Dwarven floors. Here's some temple stuff. And then you get into some of these floors that you can use in different things. And then we're back to some of these. Now I wanted to show you here really quick some of these paths that are available. See if I can find them. So here's an example of a path. It's fiery path. It's something where you can create and trace paths of lava wherever you want to. Here's a river. I get looks like an icy river. Let's see. There's more in here. TC dirt path. Easy way to create a dirt path. Here's another ice river. Looks amazing. This is a cool one. It's a chasm. And if you turn on shrink and grow, oh, that still needs some work. This is a Dungeondraft issue. But if you do it maybe at a bigger scale, let's see if that helps at all. Yeah, still's going to take some work. Maybe you don't want to do shrink and grow quite yet. But you can drag these across the map and have really cool sort of instant chasms. Here's another one. This one doesn't have lava in it. So I wanted you to know about those. And then I should also just speak briefly about the pattern shapes. So He also has some pattern shapes available. Let's see if I can find them. Here's some examples. Now, these are really simple, but they do go with his palette. So if you do end up world building with Tom's stuff, it's going to be necessary that you use these and that he creates more of these for you to use, because this is what will make his palettes agree more with his stuff than maybe something else that you're using. So keep an eye out for updates in that. Just to jump back to the objects again, these other ones will go relatively fast. Floors, we talked about. These just make anything that's going to go on the floor or underfoot, essentially, you can find in here. The modular assets that I mentioned. So here's a lot of the damage and debris. Here's all the damaged furniture, which is great. It's not been an option for us unless you've been using Tom before then. You know, all these modular waterways, modular streets, you know, all of this stuff. These are modular sewer system. And even in, of course, Forgotten Adventures has some great railroads, but Tom's got some railroads himself. In your natural assets, you're going to find so many more rocks and natural things than you've got today. And you can see there's a lot more than just rocks in here. The flora that Tom has created there's just so much of it. And you can spam those around. You've got all of your bones and blood and kind of biological things in there. But then you've got really cool, interesting things that you don't find every day. Like, what are these called? These are the Everspring pack. But I've made really interesting Underdark maps with all of these different toadstools and everything else. And you light these up in Foundry, and you've got really cool things on your hands. Here's cliffs that you can deploy, so you can like look down over a cliff, which is really smart and interesting. I've not seen that before. All of his different trees, and you know that's the bulk of it. Just a lot more to add to your palette, assuming that doesn't conflict with too much. Like these are very, you know, hand-drawn, kind of cartoony. You may not find yourself using, you know, these snow-covered things as much as other things, depending on what else you're using in your map. And then, of course, you've got the prefab that we talked about already. That gives you everything that you can drop in. So I know this was a fast fly through, and there's so much in here to go exploring. So I encourage you to do that. Pick these up, and you just download them into your assets folder, and you can just start using them. But hopefully, you know, let Tom know what kinds of things you'd like to see in the future. But I'm really excited. This just like doubled my options as far as building and designing great stuff within Dungeondraft. So thanks, Tom, for the good work on this. And anyone else, feel free to leave a comment on the video if you got any questions, and I'll see if I can help. Thanks so much, guys, and have fun making your maps.